Hey everybody, Corey from AquariumCoop.com here, and today I got some ideas for your 20-gallon aquarium. Alright, I call this tank the I just want it to look good tank. You've got a tank, maybe your spouse has been like, that thing doesn't look very good. When are you going to make that thing look good? Clean it, that type of thing. This tank is a showstopper every time you see it. What we're going to do is we're going to plant it. Bunch of green plants, and it doesn't matter if you're using high light, low light, doesn't even matter. Just get like the back half of that tank filled with plants, different textures, right? You might have some Java fern over here, you got a stem plant here, then maybe you got a dwarf lily for a splash of red over there. Like, just get that going where it's like, okay, plants are looking good. Then drop in like 20 neon tetras. A school of 20 neon tetras in a 20-gallon just looks amazing. A big group of neons to the right size tank looks magical every time. We have it in a 75-gallon, we can put like 300 in there. Looks really good. It looks good in a 20-gallon. It's just something simple about seeing a bunch of one type of fish schooling around through plants that always looks good. Minimal maintenance, that's a good thing. Like, choose some slow growing plants. You got fish that are kind of just doing their thing. They're not really making more. They're just being there looking good. And then put a few things down below. One of the things you could do is cherry shrimp. They breed, they look good because they're nice and red on the green plants. Or you could do like a little group of 3 or 4 coolie loaches down there, and they'll just clean up it, at night or whatever. You could do a couple of nerite snails or something that's not going to breed out of control. This is to set it up. Wow, that looks good. Everyone looks at that and goes, wow, I like that fish tank. That's that setup. It's not jumbled with a million different species of fish. It's almost like a species only tank, and it just looks good every time. It's one of those ones that you're never sad to see when you go, wow, that just what you end up saying, why don't I do that? It's so simple, and yet why don't I do that? Exactly. Why don't you make that tank? You will enjoy it. Do it, and people around you will love it too. Alright, so let's say you want to do a little bit of breeding in the 20-gallon. Sometimes people are attracted to that. I like to breed fish. One of the first fish I ever bred in a 20-gallon was Bristlenose pleco. They come in a brown color, they come in an albino color, they come in reds now, they come in calico, they come in longfin. There's a lot of varieties because they're easy to breed. So all you got to do is kind of provide, boom, a pleco cave about that big around. Male will go in there. He'll entice a female, trap her in there. She'll lay eggs. He'll go and sit on them and fan them for weeks until they hatch. Then you'll have all these babies come out. From there, you're going to feed a lot of small foods. Could be flake food, could be rapashi food, could be just algae growing in the tank, right? You're going to be putting in a lot of food, so you typically get a lot of nitrates and want to do a lot of water changes. One of the best ways to make this look better is live plants. Get some live plants going on in there. It's going to provide more territory for the fish to get away from each other, like mom and dad. But then all the babies, it's going to give all this surface area for the babies. Maybe get a nice log in there with some anubias or java fern growing on it. The babies will want to eat some of that wood and the mulm that grows on it, or not grows on it, but settles on it. And they'll want to eat the algae that would grow on it. So you're going to get this tank that's relatively algae free because you got a billion little babies in there. You're going to raise them up as big as you can and then either take them into your local fish store or move them onto a bigger aquarium. But you can keep cranking them out in there. And one little tip is, if you got a bunch of fry that just hatched out that day, you can kind of get dad out of the cave, take that whole cave and move it to another aquarium, and you could raise them up in there. So you could use the 20 as a spawning tank, and it looks super cool. I've got videos on it. We'll link to a specific breeding guide and that kind of stuff. But it's just kind of a fun project of, oh, what am I going to do with my 20-gallon? Oh, we're making babies. It's super cool. It's buying. You could kind of like breed a bunch of those and breed your way up to the next size tank and breed something there and breed your way up to the next size tank and have a lot of fun doing it and learn a bunch. Great for teaching kids and getting spouses involved. Like, wait, there's a bunch of babies in there. Those are cool. Both male and female are attracted to, like, wait, they're making more? Well, that's interesting. So I think that's a great family type tank, and it's enjoyable for everyone, myself included. One of my favorites. So this one is the rainbow fish tank. Yes, only in a 20-gallon. You're going to use pseudomugil rainbows. What is that? They're a dwarf species, few species actually. They only get about 2.5 inches. You've got things like neon reds, you've got the frickatas, you've got the celebes. You basically have these very flashy males that do all these crazy dances for the females. And then you've got some kind of drabbish females, and they're going to inhabit like the top third of the tank and just be, you know, super active, which is nice. They will jump out of there, sail right out of there without a tight fitting lid. So make sure your 20 gallons got a lid on there. And they really appreciate having some floating plants with some roots. They also appreciate just a nice planted tank because they're going to lay eggs every single day. The more cover they have, the less they're going to want to jump, and the more they're just going to do their behavior. So get those, pick your flavor. Do you like yellow? Do you like red ones? Do you like kind of a light blue, like the Gertrudes? You know, Google all of those types of things and look at the pictures and go, ooh, these are the ones I want to get. The problem is they're a little bit spendy. They're anywhere from 6 to 10 to 12 bucks each. So that's like, oof. You know, and you're going to get like 6 or more of these guys in there. So that can be a little bit of a, ooh, that's going to be some, you know, lunches there. But from there, you can add in a lot of other kind of common fish like Corydoras, maybe some tetras, maybe rasboras, any of the other normal standard flare kind of in the middle. And then down below, you can do some bigger shrimp like amanos. You could do snails. You could do maybe some cherry shrimp if you get those going first, because they will nip at them a little bit. They're real excitey and just, you know, fish are all over the place. They like harder water, so if you can get some hardness in there, so if you've got hard water already, that's already a perk. pH is anywhere from really 6.8 to 8.2, but you know, more in that middle range of 7.4 to 7.8 would be like, oh, they're really looking good. When it comes to feeding them, they'll eat anything off the top of the water. They'll also eat mid-water. They're not good at eating at the bottom, and they got small mouths, so maybe you don't feed them bloodworms. You feed them cyclops, and you feed them baby brine shrimp, and you feed them crushed up flake food, and you feed them micro pellets and all that kind of stuff. And as that gets by them, it'll go to the next level of fish, and then as it gets by that, that's when your snails and your Corydoras and your shrimp and all your, you know, maybe coolie loaches and that kind of stuff down low will really look good, and you can get to see them eat. So the rainbow fish tank, great one. You know, not common in the stores though, so you might have to do some searching. You could maybe shoehorn in the Praecox rainbow, but I think that does better in a little bit larger of a tank. Let's do a little oddball tank that not everyone does, and this one is a bamboo/wood shrimp tank. So what makes this different than another tank is the filtration aspect of it. So you got all these shrimp with these big mitts on their hands that filter feed. They get tiny particles out of the water. That's what they want to do all day long, right? Well, if you have a hang-on back filter that's just cleaning that water and polishing it, it's going to take all the goodies you're trying to feed out of there. So you want to go with like a sponge filter, or maybe even just an air stone in live plants, and feed very small powdery foods. It could be rapashi that hasn't been cooked. It could be first bites. It could be Shrimp King food specifically for them. But you need the water to get cloudy, you know, and not like super cloudy, but so you could see it swirling around in there. So they got the stuff they can catch out of there, right? And you might want to do 2 or 3 of these guys. Like maybe you get a bamboo shrimp or 2, and then you get like 1, maybe 2 of the blue wood shrimp, and you're gonna get leaves on there, so maybe anubias and java ferns, plants growing, and they're kind of just doing their thing and grabbing stuff. And then from there you can add some other little nano fish maybe, because you've got these big shrimp. They're gonna be 3 or 4 inches, which is like, oh man, that's insane. And then you can have these little baby fish in there, and everyone will be like, wait, those don't eat those things? What is that, a crawdad in there? That's what you're gonna get a lot of. But you could do like celestial pearl danios. They love to feed in that kind of like, oh, there's food all around in the water column. Could be Norman lampicules, could be Brigitae rasboras, all that kind of stuff. And then I would add in like some snails, because if you ever see your filter feeders eating off the ground, that means they're not getting enough food. So if we're doing our job right, we're gonna put all this stuff in the water, they're gonna eat a bunch, and some of that's gonna land on the ground. And so then we need something like, well, maybe a snail, or maybe some smaller shrimp like cherry shrimp or a mono shrimp, something like that, to, you know, clean up the bottom there. And so you get this weird like invertebrate tank with some nanofish going, and it's not just your normal standard fare of like, oh, it's a community tank. It's a different community, and it's very fun. Now technically, if you set that up right, celestial pearl danios, some of those shrimp, and like just a sponge filter, you don't even have to heat it. So it could be one of those unheated tanks as well. But it's kind of an oddball thing, and not for everyone. Like, it's a different way of like, you know, you can't just put big fish in there, and you can't do typical filtration and all the normal, but that's, I think, what makes it interesting. So, you know, try yourself out a filter feeding tank and see how you like it. All right, for this 20-gallon tank, we're going unheated. You know, by popular request, people go, you never do a tank that doesn't require a heater. I don't want to put a heater, right? All right, so in this 20-gallon tank, we're not going to use a heater. We're going to use room temperature. And for that definition, we're going to say like 62 degrees and above, okay? We're going to start with what I think is the best unheated fish that you can get a variety of, and that is the danio. Now, my absolute favorites are longfin blue danios, longfin blue leopard danios, and pretty much any of those. Like, if they got long fins, they look super cool. If they're blue, they look super cool. If they're leopard, they're super cool. If they're both, they're even cooler. You're gonna get a kaleidoscope of those of like 12, 15 of those. They're just gonna be zinging all over. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be doing that the whole time, which is awesome when you feed. And then down low, we want to use something that's cold tolerant or cooler water tolerant, something like a salt and pepper Corydora, right? And you want like a group of maybe 5 to 6 of those. They're gonna be down low. They're gonna eat everything that gets by the danios, which that'll be helpful. And then from there, you want like maybe a snail or a shrimp. So you could do like a mono shrimp. You could do nerite snails, Malaysian trumpet snails. You could do Japanese trapdoor snails. It's a live-bearing snail that only does well in cooler water. So it's kind of one of those like, oh, all right. And if you're really kind of trying to play your odds here, you could breed those Japanese trapdoor snails and then sell them to your local fish store once it's pond season, because they're typically used outside and they get about as big as a golf ball. So you can kind of get some fun things going on there. No heat required. You know, just keep the water well oxygenated, maybe with an air stone and a hang-on back filter. You know, we still need basic care. But in general, we know danio is very, very hardy. And then we know that Corydora is also hardy, and snail's pretty hardy. The one thing we want, a little bit of hardness in there for the snails, calcium, maybe a calcium food block, something like that. And then pH, you don't want to let it go too crazy acidic if you're going with the snails, you know, maybe like 7.2 and higher. And if it's without the snails, you basically can go all the way from like 6.6 to 8.2. Like, they're very tolerant, these fish. They're very hardy. Great for beginners, action-packed, great for a kid's bedroom, that type of thing. Great where any kids are going to be tapping on the glass. Like, in general, they're a real tolerant fish, and that's why they don't have to have heat and all that stuff. So you can breed them. Maybe if you got a lot of plants going on in there, you might see a baby or two pop up and you're feeding some very microscopic foods. But once you add snails and Corydoras and other cleaner fish, are going to clean up those eggs for you. And I think it's enjoyable. Everyone should do the danio tank, whether it's heated or not, at one point in their career, just because it's a fun, like, wow, that's a tornado of lots going on all the time. And the fish are cheap. You know, like the average danio is somewhere between like $1 to $2.50, you know, maybe even $3 if you're like, oh man, this store's a little expensive. But they're really great fish. So I hope you enjoy them.